The sun was setting on our little suburban utopia, painting the sky in hues of burnt orange and soft pink. Our neighborhood, with its meticulously manicured lawns and pristine driveways, seemed to glow under the fading light. It was a community where sameness was celebrated and deviation was met with suspicion. A place where every blade of grass stood in perfect alignment and the slightest variation could stir the pot of suburban politics. I had always found solace in my garden, a small patch of earth where I could lose myself among the blooms of roses, the cascading ivy, and the gentle hum of bees. It was my sanctuary, a splash of unrestrained nature amidst the otherwise rigid uniformity. That was until the day Karen from 3 houses down decided to shift her gaze my way. Karen, the self-appointed arbiter of order, the vigilant shepherd guarding the flock from the wolves of individuality. Her eyes, sharp as the edge of a freshly honed knife, missed nothing, not even the extra flower pot I had dared to place on my porch. A simple terracotta vessel, cradling a cheerful burst of marigolds. A crime, it seemed, against the covenants of conformity. Her first move was subtle. A glance, a pause in her power walk down the street, her eyes narrowing slightly as she lingered just a moment too long. It was a declaration of war delivered in silence, a promise of skirmishes to come. I found her note the next morning, tucked into my mailbox, its edges crisp with controlled rage. A formal complaint, wrapped in the thin veneer of neighborly concern. The message was clear. Remove the pot or face the consequences. It was absurd, comical even, yet it carried the weight of her authority, backed by the bylaws she wielded like a sword. For a moment, irritation nipped at my calm exterior, but I shook it off, knowing that her pettiness wasn't worth the energy. Instead, I absorbed the irony of it all, a passing cloud briefly casting a shadow over my morning. I let the note find its place among other inconsequential papers, destined to be forgotten. I returned to my garden, my hands finding their rhythm in the soil, coaxing life from the ground. Each petal, a reminder of resilience, each leaf a testament to patience. I would not be drawn into her theater of pettiness. I would rise above, let my flowers speak of defiance in their silent bloom. But Karen was not finished. Her next move was louder, a public shaming at the neighborhood meeting, her voice ringing with righteousness as she listed my transgression. Her words were daggers, aimed to wound, but they clattered harmlessly against the fortress of my composure. My response was a gentle smile, a nod, acknowledging her concerns without yielding to them. I knew then that the skirmish had turned into a campaign, her persistence a testament to her need for control, my patience a testament to my quiet power. I would not be moved by her threats or her tactics. The marigolds, vibrant and unyielding, remained on my porch, their presence a small act of rebellion, a promise that her reign of pettiness would not go unchecked. In this little flower pot, I found my battle standard. It was a symbol of a war I never wanted, but one I was prepared to fight. Not with anger or outrage, but with the calm assurance that sometimes the smallest acts of defiance can lead to the greatest victories. The sun rose over our quaint suburban enclave, casting long shadows that stretched across driveways like fingers of a meddling hand. It was the kind of morning that whispered promises of tranquility. Yet, for those like me, unfortunate enough to cross paths with Karen, tranquility was but a fleeting shadow. Karen had escalated. Her warpath was paved with absurd rules and dictated through the authoritative tome of the HOA guidelines, which she wielded like a scepter. The extra flower pot had become an emblem of rebellion, sprouting not just flowers, but a tangled vine of petty vendettas. That morning, a crisp white envelope slipped under my door, fluttering innocently to the floor. The citation felt heavier than paper, a concoction of bureaucracy and spite. The ink spelled out my infractions with meticulous precision. Too many lawn ornaments. A garden edging suspiciously close to avant-garde. And of course, the infamous extra flower pot, an insidious threat to the harmony of our neighborhood. The absurdity of it all was almost poetic. It was as if I had planted a flag, staking claim to a plot of land in a forgotten war. But Karen was relentless, her tactics veiled in passive-aggressive courtesy. And then the whispers began. Like shadows flitting at the edge of vision, the gossip spread. I could feel it in the sidelong glances from neighbors, a collective shrug of disapproval. The air was thick with unspoken judgments, each wordless condemnation a brick in the wall being built between me and my fellow residents. The neighborhood potluck became a tribunal. The smiles were strained, conversations stilted. Karen, in her element, presided over the gathering with the self-assuredness of a queen. Her eyes flitted over the crowd, searching for dissent like a hawk circling for prey. I watched her from the edge, amused at the performance. Her authority was a delicate construct, much like the trellis in her backyard, intricate but fragile. She saw herself as the gardener of this community, pruning away the unsightly and unruly. But every snip was a reminder of her intrusion, her presence unwelcome among the wildflowers. The turning point came unexpectedly. A minor skirmish in our ongoing war, inconsequential to anyone but us. Karen intercepted me by the mailbox, her eyes alight with a dangerous gleam. In a rare display, words spilled out, sharp and cutting, each syllable a shard of ice. You think you can get away with this?" Her voice was a challenge wrapped in a smile. It was the moment. The absurdity crystallized. The silent rebellion against her tyranny had become something more. A stand against the oppressive weight of conformity. I met her gaze, calm and unwavering, the storm within me a silent force. "Watch me." It was the only dialogue needed. The words hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown at the feet of a self-proclaimed monarch. They were simple, yet carried the weight of 1,000 defiant gestures. In that moment, I realized the battle was no longer about flower pots or neighborhood aesthetics. It had become a testament to individuality, a legal landmark in the making. And Karen, with all her rules and judgments, had unwittingly become the architect of her own undoing. The suburban stage was set, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in hues of rebellion, I knew this was only the beginning. The quiet storm had been summoned, and it would carve its path through her empire of pettiness and pretension. The morning sunlight draped itself gently over the tops of the maple trees, casting long shadows that reached out across the manicured lawns like quiet whispers. It was a perfect day, or at least it should have been. I stood by the window, my gaze tracing the lines where sunlight met shade. From this vantage point, I could observe the world with a detachment that felt both safe and powerful. The extra flower pot remained steadfastly in its place, a small act of defiance against the iron grip of Karen's rule. It was unassuming, really, and yet, somehow, it had become the epicenter of a social earthquake within our community. A single ceramic pot, decorated with swirling blue patterns that mimicked the sky, had stirred the pot of suburban tranquility, or perhaps revealed the cracks that had long been there, waiting. Neighbors had begun to notice. First, there were the curious glances, the sidelong looks as they walked their dogs or fetched their morning papers. Then came the hushed conversations, snippets floating through the air like dandelion seeds on the breeze. It was a symphony of murmurs, both amused and appalled. Karen's name was on their lips, a mantra of fascination and fear. I knew she was watching too. Behind her white lace curtains, she lurked like a specter, her shadow flickering against the window pane. Her presence was palpable, an unseen force exerting pressure on the neighborhood like a storm gathering strength. Yet there was a certain pleasure in it, knowing she was powerless to stop the flower pot, that her own rules had bound her hands. As the days slipped by, the tension mounted, a crescendo playing out in the most mundane of settings. I could feel it in the way the air seemed heavier, the way each encounter seemed charged with unspoken words. The community was alive with it, a living, breathing entity that thrived on the drama unfolding before it. In those quiet moments between the chaos, I would reflect, savoring the irony. This was more than a battle of wills. It was a study in human nature. Karen had underestimated me, underestimated the power of quiet resistance. She had seen me as just another resident to be controlled, another pawn in her game. But in her attempt to maintain order, she had unleashed something she couldn't contain. There was a certain poetry in it all, an elegance to the way the situation unfolded. The extra flower pot had become a symbol, not just of rebellion, but of a shared, unspoken understanding among my neighbors. It was a line drawn in the sand, a declaration that enough was enough. And in that realization lay a profound sense of camaraderie. A week passed before anything changed, a week of simmering tension and silent defiance. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, something extraordinary happened. The mail arrived with a letter from the HOA, but it wasn't a reprimand or a demand for compliance. It was an invitation, a call for a community meeting, an opportunity to discuss the rules, to reshape them. Karen had overplayed her hand, and now the community was ready to respond. I held the letter in my hands, the paper cool against my fingers, and felt a rush of satisfaction. The extra flower pot had indeed become a legal landmark, a catalyst for change, and as I stood by the window once more, I couldn't help but smile. Victory, after all, can be as simple and as beautiful as a single flower in bloom. The day of the hearing dawned with a peculiar hush, as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. The air had the crispness of a page being turned, a chapter closing, an era ending. Karen's empire of rules and regulations teetered on the brink of collapse, and her reign of floral tyranny was about to be challenged in a way that no one had dared before. As I walked toward the community center, the sun bathed the streets in a golden light, casting long shadows that danced like whispers of forgotten grievances. My heart was steady. The chaos of the weeks past had distilled into a clear purpose. The extra flower pot that had sparked this cascade of events felt almost trivial now, a mere symbol of something much larger, a community's desire to breathe, to bloom in its own unique way. Residents gathered in small clusters, murmuring with anticipation. Their faces, once tense with fear of reprimand, now bore expressions of cautious hope. I could feel their gazes, a mixture of silent encouragement and shared resolve. We had all been drawn into Karen's web, but today, threads of unity were weaving us together instead. Inside, the meeting room buzzed with a low hum of expectation. Karen sat across the table, her posture rigid, a porcelain mask of control barely concealing the storm beneath. Her clipboard, normally her scepter of authority, lay unused. Today, it was just paper and ink, stripped of its power by the weight of collective will. As the proceedings began, words flowed like an unrelenting tide, each argument meticulously crafted, each point a carefully honed tool. I spoke of community spirit, of shared spaces, and the beauty of diversity. I painted a picture of vibrant gardens and homes bursting with individuality, a tapestry woven from the unique threads of each resident's life. The irony hung in the air, unspoken but palpable, that a single flower pot could unravel such a tightly wound fabric of control was almost poetic. Karen's rules had been precise, her expectations rigid, but life, like nature, refused to be so easily contained. Then came the moment of tension, the crescendo of conflict that had simmered beneath the surface. Karen, in a rare display of vulnerability, attempted to defend her actions, her voice slipping through the cracks of her composure. It was brief, a fleeting glimpse of the human beneath the armor, but it was enough to shatter her illusion of infallibility. The decision, when it came, was a declaration of change. The rules were amended, allowances made for personal expression. The community embraced a future where individuality was celebrated, not stifled. Karen's influence waned, her presence becoming a distant echo of what once was. As the meeting concluded, relief washed over me, a gentle wave of liberation. Stepping outside, I found the sun had shifted, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. A place transformed, not by grand gestures, but by the power of quiet resistance and shared dreams. In the end, it wasn't just about a flower pot. It was about reclaiming a sense of belonging, of redefining what it meant to be part of a community. And as I walked home, the garden seemed to bloom anew, each petal a testament to resilience, a legal landmark, not etched in stone or signed in ink, but rooted in the soil, a victory both simple and profound.